Hey, y'all, and welcome back to another live cast with your agnostic, non binary, sex positive, social justice oriented, LGBTQIA plus affirming, science embracing, bourbon drinking, tobacco pipe smoking pod pastor Christopher Van Hall. Thanks so much for joining our digital space where we talk about Christian ethics from a socially and spiritually progressive perspective, aka the biblical way. Now, today we're going to jump right in because we're talking about hope and the problem with hope. And today, the great theologian George Michael comes to my mind because he was quoted saying, "You have to have faith, faith, faith." That's a great quote from the late, great George Michael. And although he's one of the most underrated pop songwriters from the 80s, I don't want to learn to hold you. I do think old Georgie got this one wrong because not only is faith not enough, sometimes it keeps bad things the same or can even make bad things worse. 1 Corinthians 13, a text describing ideal communal living that is strangely read at every Christian marriage ceremony, says this: "If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers, and I understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all of my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing." Meaning all this spiritual mumbo jumbo, it means absolute butkus unless it manifests in a physically tangible and genuine way. Then the author defines how to measure that tangible and genuine love. It says this: "Love is patient, love is kind, love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things." Now, oftentimes in the scriptures, the structure of each passage really matters. I want you to notice something. I want you to see how this text gives descriptors of love in action and how that precedes verses about things like belief, hope, and endurance. And there's a reason for that. The text continues. "Love never ends, but as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. But when I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will be fully known, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest is love." Now, the Koine Greek word for greatest here is meson, and it does not mean that love is simply greater or better than faith and hope. But this word, meson, in its original language, implies rulership or origin of the former two things. So love, not in theory, love not as an emotion, but genuine love in action and love made manifest, it precedes and dictates where we should put our faith and our hope, and where that faith and that hope should come from, not the other way around. And that's why when the text says love believes all things and hopes all things and endures all things, it's placed in the passage after it lists tangible ways in which we can birth love in our lives for our community. So hoping that love wins is an amazing concept as long as that concept emerges from doing the work of love. But there's a deeper truth to be told about hope here. Friends, one of the most dangerous forces to be reckoned with is hope. And that's not meant to discourage or to put hope down or even encourage it, because hope can be a tool for both the morally upright and the wicked. To quote the Star Wars film Rogue One, rebellions are built on hope. That's an amazing thing. But at times, one of the most common enablers of oppression is faith and hope in the unseen. Let me give you some examples. How often do we ignore this world or loved ones that are near and dear to us that might be in their latter years because we think we will have a new home with those loved ones in a mythical place called heaven? How often do corporations and governments use hope as a means to achieve power and realize their own selfish ambition? You remember the Exxon commercials talking about a greener tomorrow? Do you really think they meant that? How often do religious institutions use a message of hope as a way to pacify the masses or keep their congregants stagnant when issues of social injustice arise nationally? Thoughts and prayers ringing any bells? I mean, in America, we got more caps being popped in our educational system than quizzes on a weekly basis, and we think that the spiritual equivalent to a Care Bear stare is going to change anything? How often do people remain loyal to toxic people that consistently abuse them because they hope that their own kindness and their own endurance and their grace that they're displaying to this abuser will somehow save that victimizer? Well, I know they are racist or sexist or insert other bigoted descriptor here. I just have to love them where they are. Fuck that. We have to love them too much to let them stay in their ideological filth. And we have to love ourselves enough to walk away if necessary. Because contrary to what they believe, they're not the only person in the world that has value. You have value, and the people that they harm with their toxic ideals and with their votes, those people matter too. But I digress. You see, hope on its own is neither good nor bad. It can be both. And the intent in which we wield hope can often determine the impact. That's not true for everything in life, but I believe with hope it can be. For example, there's a difference between saying that one hopes police brutality ends and one hoping that police brutality ceases while they take to the streets and lift their voices and they demand that those in power end it now. There's a difference. There's a difference between praying that world hunger ceases plaguing people around the world versus feeding people while simultaneously longing for a day when charity is no longer necessary. There's a difference between praying for victims of environmental destruction while believing that God will one day somehow show up suddenly to rescue our crumbling biosphere versus allowing our hope to fuel efforts for a greener tomorrow. So short story long, hope is either a vehicle for progress or a woo-woo catalyst for inertia. And we can't afford to sit back and not move and relax and be complacent because sadly the work will not be done in our lifetime. And if we stop now, it might not continue. On the same day that George Floyd's killer was convicted, another officer shot a teenage woman of color. Days later on the news, a woman with dementia had her arm dislocated while officers laughed, and another man of color in Alameda, California was recently killed by officers that kneeled on his back for 6 minutes. We cannot take a singular victory in any realm of justice work as evidence that our nation is healing and use that hope to allow us to sit back and congratulate ourselves and crack a beer and say, "Great work, y'all." We can't do that. And we can't simply pray for God to restore things for us. We have to put legs and feet to our hope. Hope alone won't stop bullets. It won't invigorate the longevity of our planet that's quickly dying. It won't secure the survival of our species. It won't end poverty. It won't dismantle the prison industrial complex. It won't stop Asian hate. It won't restore native lands. Hope won't deconstruct white supremacy, and hope's not going to give Flint clean water. But maybe we could get off our collective asses and write just policy, enact governmental oversight, and enact corporate regulations while taxing billionaires and hope that they work as effectively as every credible social scientist, environmentalist, and economist said that those things would. Because that, in my mind, is the contextual biblical definition of hope. Mic drop, but I can't. It's on a stand. So be wary of those that say things like, just give it to God, or lay it at the foot of the cross, or give it to Jesus, or all we can do is pray, because though they may be piously posturing themselves as someone spiritually superior to yourself, and though they may appear to be humbly placing society's ills in the hands of their God, what they are really declaring to you is that their hands won't be doing any of the heavy lifting. Clergy like this aren't spiritually superior, and they aren't sages of positivity. They have simply ritualized complicity to spread passivity. And those common fallacies that are constantly being projected from pulpits, especially in America, they have kept the church comforted in a sense of misguided complacency. So today, as we take communion together, may we be reminded that Jesus never invited us to sit back and simply appreciate the bread and the cup, and to just believe in the power of the bread and the cup that symbolize the movement of justice work that Jesus physically manifested. But may we be reminded that Jesus invited us to partake in these elements of the bread and of the cup, and to consume these endeavors as often as possible. And at the end of the day, friends, I hope that we're brave enough to do just that. Until next week. No justice, no peace. Love y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed today's sermon. I just want to remind you all, I hope that we see you at 1 o'clock if you're local in Santa Cruz for our fellowship hour at the Greater Purpose Brewing Company. And if you like what you hear, please share the message with your friend. And don't forget to smash that like button and that subscribe button. And until next week, y'all, I love you. Grace and peace. And now, may the revolution of Jesus go with you wherever it may send you. May it guide you in healing this wasteland and protect you through the storm. May it lead you through this world seeking the justice it demands for you and for others. And may it bring you home preparing to continue love's mission beyond your doors. Grace and justice to you.